Today I want to talk about working in retail and tips for that. If you are thinking about getting a job working at a retail store, be it somewhere that sells furniture, televisions, groceries, any kind of retail environment where you go into a store and you buy things, be it food items, maybe electronics, clothing, it doesn't matter. It's all retail. These are my tips for you. Now, I'm just going to tell you right now that a career choice in retail, it's not really that stressful until you move up in the company. I myself did 13 years. I served 13 years in retail at a superstore. This is a store that sells groceries, furniture, clothing, electronics, artwork, all sorts of just crazy knickknacks like kitchenware, you name it. It's a superstore. I'm going to boil these tips as quick and as efficiently as possible. If you are forced into this line of work and you have no other option, then do heed my words because it will save you an enormous amount of time, stress, and just in general, your life will be much better off if you just listen to my advice, okay? So if you are a teenager or have no work experience, you will probably be hired on the very bottom of the totem pole. What this means is that you're not going to be hired immediately into a position of power, responsibility, or something where you can screw up and cause a huge disaster to the store itself. You will most likely be someone who goes and gets the shopping carts from the parking lot, someone that bags groceries, and cleans toilets, cleans floors, and just cleans in general. Now, advice number one is if you do not care about how much you earn, then this is an okay position to be in, assuming you are not stuck on janitorial duty due to being short-staffed or just being assigned the janitor role in general. If you want to do janitorial work, there are tons and tons of other places that will pay you a reasonable amount of money. Retail is not one of them. If you are stuck being a janitor in retail, you are being paid absolute minimum wage, bottom dollar. You don't even have the proper, most stores and most companies do not have the proper equipment to safely and properly clean things. You are just having like some basic spray bottles and some basic chemicals and an old mop bucket used in the 80s. However, this is different if you work at a gas station retail environment where you will have much more sophisticated equipment, a much smaller space to clean. But generally, if you work at a superstore, I'm talking a ginormous mega store, and you're the only janitor on duty, you are going to be run to the bone. You're going to be up and down that entire store. You're going to be walking over 30 to 40,000 steps a day. Every single person from every single department is going to be calling you for assistance to clean up this, clean up that. Because it's a superstore, you get some of the most disgusting, grossest customers. You even have these weird customers that like to do gross things on purpose just for the memes. Like, I'm not kidding. There was a guy that every single week he would come in and he would hide his poop just randomly in the store, on the floor, on the shelves. He would bring it in like a little paper bag under his shirt and he would just start placing them everywhere. It was so disgusting. You have customers that need to run to the bathroom, but because it's a superstore and because they're in a motorized cart, because they're crippled, they can't just get up and sprint to the bathroom, so they just go in the cart. They just go in the aisles. I'm not joking. This happened every other day. Customers and employees will be constantly accidentally breaking things that are extremely disgusting, gross, and just an absolute chore to clean up. I'm not talking, oops, I dropped a small jar of peanut butter and it shattered on the ground. I'm talking, oh no, I knocked an entire pallet of oil all over the floor. It's now under the gondolas, which are the shelves in a grocery store. This oil is seeping into carpets. It is going to take you hours and hours. And you're one man, but you also have to cover other things. You have to cover brakes. You have to cover like helping old ladies out to their cars because there's no baggers because they didn't show up that day. You're going to be run to the freaking bone and screamed at, and no one ever in the entire store will ever appreciate anything that you do. With that said, here's some quick tips if you are stuck in the janitorial position so that people will like you and you could hopefully get promoted out of it. Step number one is when cleaning the bathrooms, have some sort of very scented cleaner like Pine Sol. Pine Sol is very scented, right? All you have to do is splash, spray, or rub a little bit of Pine Sol into the air vents. That is it. Once you do that, the entire bathroom will have an aroma of freshness and cleanliness, and it will impress everybody. People will think that you've scrubbed that whole damn bathroom absolutely sparkling, speckly clean. They will love you for it. They will absolutely just think you're the best janitor ever. Step number two is to constantly change out the trash can bags whenever management or supervisors are not looking, because they will complain about everything. They'll complain if you change out the trash bag before it's full. They'll complain if you change out the trash bag if it's too full. They'll complain that if there's something smelling bad in the trash and you haven't changed it yet, why haven't you changed it yet? So always do your trash duties away from prying eyes of your fellow employees. And lastly, always use the most expensive and effective cleaner for the job. Say there's a massive oil spill like I talked about earlier. Instead of spraying that thing up or sopping it up with a mop or paper towels or whatever you can grab, go to the back room, get that fancy powder that you pour on liquids that just absorbs everything into a where you can just pick up the powder. I forget what it's called, but it's a really expensive absorbent powder that generally is only used for really like emergency spills. Just use that kind of stuff on everything because it's super cheap, and all you have to do is ask one of the managers or supervisors if they know how to order things in the store to just order you a few pallets of it, and then you're good to go. And it's the fastest, most easiest way to clean that stuff up, and people will think that you're some sort of janitorial god. Now, on the same pay grade are the baggers and the cart getters. They're basically the same thing. They're the lads that go out into the parking lots and they push carts back into the store. Okay, so this job, you don't want to be on cart duty if you can help it for a few reasons, okay? It's not that good of a workout. You're outdoors, so you're in rain, snow, blistering heat. I have had so many baggers that had heat stroke and passed out. And these are like, you know, young sprung teenagers that are like varsity like football players, right? But the main reason why you don't want to be on cart duty if you can help it is because if you are bagging groceries for sweet old ladies, you are getting tips. You are getting paid tips for taking their groceries out to their car. You're getting tips for bagging their groceries, and you're nice and indoors, and you can chat it up with your fellow employees. And that's a big thing too, is that you can use your retail job as a social area, so you can make lots of friends. You can even hook up with some people if you've got some Chad genetics in you. You can do all sorts of fun things, especially, you know, like there's a lot of fun to be had with your fellow employees. Hopefully they're not all like really old people that are bitter and angsty, but even some of them can be pretty cool. They might have a barbecue, or maybe they might invite you over for chili, and it's a free meal for you if you're poor and broke. But if you're out in the rain or the blistering heat getting carts, you're not getting tips, you're not making friends, you're not socializing, you're not talking about World of Warcraft or Call of Duty. Now, if you are stuck on cart duty, never ever be the best at getting carts. Do not show that you can get the most carts in the most efficient and fastest time. You want to be a feet dragger. You want to quiet quit on this position, because if you are the best cart getter, guess who is going to be constantly called all of the time to get carts? That's right. We are completely out of carts, and customers are yelling at the managers that there's no carts in the store. Hey, Timmy, go out and get carts. Timmy's fast. He'll get all the carts in lickety-split. Next up on the totem pole is a whole lot of other positions in retail. This includes cashiers, this includes overnight stalkers, this includes daytime stalkers, this includes working just as a laborer in every department, like if you work in the deli department, the bakery, the produce department, you know, putting apples on the shelves and bags of salads, the meat market cutters, and basically all of the starter normal laborious positions in a retail store. You know, standing around in the pots and pans section, answering customer questions, being in electronics, fetching video games for, you know, gamers and whatnot. It's all of these combined, okay? And there is one position in this pay grade in a retail store that is the absolute best position to be in, that trumps all other positions, and to the point where if I was forced back to working in retail, which I probably will, let's be real, this YouTube channel thing, it's not really doing me any favors. The cashier is where you want to be. However, this can be very rare depending on the store or area, as most retail stores have phased out having cashiers entirely. Every single store that I go to in my area might have one cashier, and the rest are all self-checkouts. So this might be very hard to get into, but the reason why you want the cashier position is it's paid the same as all the other positions, but it has the least amount of responsibility, it has the least amount of physical labor, it gives you the most chances to socialize with customers, you know, if you're like lonely and want friends or a girlfriend or whatever. It's also like the best social position for your coworkers. But also, like I said, you have the least amount of responsibility, you have the least amount of worries, the least amount of stress, the least amount of physical exertion, and the least amount of walking. If you're lucky and you work in a retail store that lets you sit, you're one of the only positions in the entire store, besides managers, that gets to sit down in a comfy chair. But get this too, you are also in a position to not be bothered by other departments almost never, ever, ever. And the reason for this, think about it, okay? The store is super busy. There are a lot of cashiers and baggers have called in, and now there's a line of angry customers at the front. Guess who they call? They call the produce guy to the front to help check. They call the deli guy to the front to help bag. They call, the meat market guys up front to help, escort customers out to their car on a rainy night. Guess who gets to stay inside the store and do nothing? The cashier. Yeah, you might get yelled at for long lines. Guess what? It's not your problem. It's the floor supervisor's problem. It's the front end manager's problem. It's the store manager's problem. It's not your problem that lines are long. You just make a call to one of the supervisors and then that's it. If a customer has a problem, you just call the supervisor and the supervisor handles it. The only real stressors as a cashier are as follows. Most cashiers in most retail stores are graded on their speed and performance. What I mean by this is that cashiers, believe it or not, are graded on how fast they can scan the products and type in produce codes. That's pretty standard. However, from me and my experience as a manager, we've never, ever, ever demoted or fired or punished anyone for being slow. Because there's no point. You would have to punish everyone for being slow. At the same time, I can give a stern talking to a slow, old granny cashier. It won't do any good. It's not going to make her faster. She's never going to be fast. But you know what? As long as she's a warm body with a pulse that shows up and can scan groceries, that's all that matters, okay? In the long run, yeah, I get yelled at by corporate as the manager, by my upper peoples, for having a slow cashier and to do something about it. But that's something that I can do. I can't demote them. Most stores won't or can't, okay? The only thing I can do is give the hours away to someone more efficient, okay? So if you're desperate for hours and you're not locked into full-time due to union benefits or something, then you're pretty much safe anyway. The cashier also has a very high pay gap between the bagger or the janitors and the cashier. I'm talking $8 to $10 difference from being the lowest of the store to the one step above, okay? As far as responsibility and physical labor goes, the cashier does the least amount and is paid the most. All right, now, obviously, the cashier is not the highest paid position in the store. That would be the manager. But let me explain, okay? A cashier works 8 hours a day, and they make, at top pay, 17 to 18 bucks, depending on where you live. Maybe 15 bucks, depending on the store. It really, really depends. The manager makes maybe a few dollars more than the cashier, except they're salaried, and they work 12-hour shifts minimum. Guess who, based on work hours and time spent in the store and labor spent in the store, makes more money? The cashier. The cashier will almost always outpace everyone except a very senior store manager in pay based on hours worked alone. Other stresses that the cashier might have are these undercover people that come in to make sure that you're checking ID if they try to buy cigarettes or alcohol. So what they do is they'll send a young 20-something person to the store, and what they check for is if you're asking for ID and if you're typing in the ID. You can't do the math in your head, even if you're really quick at math. It doesn't matter. They have to see you type it into the stupid computer. And basically, the rule is anyone that looks under 40, you ID them. And anyone who isn't super wrinkly and old, you ID them. And even if they are old, you can ID them as a joke or as a social, haha, lol, XD, you're so young, kind of flattery tactic, right? But other than that, the only other stressor is secret shoppers or undercover shoppers, and they're just people that are making sure that you're talking to them and smiling at them, which is really easy to do if you're extroverted. If you're introverted, your life sucks, you have no girlfriend, and you just lost all your loot in Albion Online or something. Yeah, you might be a little frowny or a little down that day, and you might not pass the secret shop, and guess what? If you don't pass the secret shop, you get a stern talking to. You don't get fired, you don't get demoted, you don't lose your pay, you don't lose your hours. It's like, oh well, better luck next time, lol. Okay, so next up in the totem pole, which is where you should never go at this point. Once you hit cashier, lock yourself in, never volunteer to do any other work in the store, never be like, oh, you need extra help in produce, you need extra help overnight, because you will be stuck in those positions forever. Never, ever, ever abandon your cashier position. If they try to fire you over it or anything, then walk and go find somewhere else to be a cashier at, because it is the #1 easiest and best position in all of retail. And I'm telling you right now, once you're stuck in there, it's super hard to get rid of you. And at the same time, you don't want to be working in any other department. It's so much stressful and so much laborious intensive. But Next up on the totem pole is the supervisors. These are the people that maybe wear a fancy vest or they have a little bit of extra crap on their uniforms or whatever. And their job is to make sure that the cashiers are doing their part. They're smiling, they're talking to people, they're looking for suspicious activity, they're giving out breaks, managing cashiers' breaks, baggers' breaks. In other departments, they're managing inventory. They are doing counts. They're having to go look up and down shelves for what's called a hole to see if there's any products that are out on the shelf so they can order more that the computer might have automatically missed. Because computers, they know when something is out on a shelf unless it's stolen or scanned wrongly. So they're having to constantly do these recounts. There's like certain audits during the year that they'll have to be part of. It's a huge hassle for all the other supervisory positions in the entire store, including the front end ones too. And you know what? You only get paid pennies more. You might make 10, 25, 50 cents more an hour. It is not worth that small pay increase to do all of that stress and all of that work and have all of that responsibility. Please trust me on this. It is absolutely never, ever, ever, ever worth it. Then next up you have the department managers, which are the managers of a department, like the electronics manager, you have the meat manager, and these guys can make maybe $1 to $2 above a cashier per hour. It's really not a lot, but the responsibility is quadrupled. They now have to deal with management stressing them about every little thing. They're going to have to deal with corporate stressing them about every little thing. You're going to have to drive to multiple stores, possibly across country or state lines, depending on where you live and where you work, just to get to these meetings. And no, you don't. Yeah, they say they'll pay for your gas, and then they don't because budget cuts. And because, well, they're going to bully you into just not paying you for gas mileage. But the point is that you're going to be racked with stress. You're the number one guy that has to deal with call-ins. Oh no, the cashier's called in. Oh no, the bagger's called in. Guess what? You're going to have to call like 40 different employees who are all teenagers, and they're not going to come in for you. They're not going to help you work. You are absolutely screwed. You have to stay late. Let's say you're the dairy manager and your dairy people get sick, or realistically they're just, taking the day off to go to amusement park or something and goof off, or, they're skipping work to play the new Call of Duty release. So you have to stay and work your 16 to 20 hour shift now to cover all their shifts while you're being yelled at by management, while you're being yelled at by corporate for having failed numbers, and you're having to do all this stress, all this work, and learn all this crap that is way beyond your pay grade for only, $1 to $2 extra an hour? And then finally, above that, you have management. Welcome to salary. You now have to work a minimum 12-hour days. Sorry, but it's company policy that you're not allowed to work in the same city that you live in, because you might be some sort of like weirdo that has connections to the local townspeople, and you might be cutting them a deal. So now you have to drive 2 hours in traffic both ways every day. You have to show up early because, hey, the corporate's going to be in town and we need to clean up the store. Your 12-hour shift just turned into a 16-hour shift, and then you got a 2-hour drive back home in traffic. You have to be constantly screamed and berated by corporate. You're going to have to constantly, you are trained at this point to scream and yell and just terrorize your department managers. If they don't do their job, then you have to go down and terrorize their supervisors. You're constantly being pulled left and right by every employee that they need your help with something that they don't know how to do, that you were honestly never trained to do. If you're in a managerial position, you might know what to do if you grew up in the company working there for years, but most likely you're just some college-educated guy that has a 4-year degree. You went immediately into retail for some reason and was hired on the spot as a manager, skipping the entire ladder climb. So you don't know what the hell anyone's job is or how to do their job or how to be efficient, but because you're a rich and spry young lad who has been through manager training, you now are a sudden know-it-all who is going to be very offensive and yell at your employees, and you're doing it for maybe 50 cents to a couple dollars more than the department head, but you're salaried, so you're technically working more hours, and the more hours because you're working and all the traffic that you have to drive through, you're now making less money than the cashier position. That's right. You are now technically working more hours and making less than a cashier does if they worked that same amount of hours. You also have no more protections with a union because managers are not in unions, and also you have to deal with corporates screaming at you and cutting your pay and changing your schedules. And hey, you know that vacation that you planned so you can get married, like the was later on this year, you have to cancel it because now and some other manager who's higher up in the chain than you wanted to go on vacation, or a department head quit, and now you have to cover that department head's position. You also have to work every single department in the store because they're always short of help, or they didn't hire someone for the next 3 months because there's just no one applying that could, that isn't smart enough to do the position, and you are just stressing out to the point of just madness. Is it worth the extra couple bucks an hour? Except it's not an extra couple bucks an hour. And you think to yourself, I'm going to work in management the next 5 to 7 years, and I'm going to get into corporate, and then it's easy street after that. Well, once you get to corporate, then there's high corporate, there's HQ, there's all the office people that don't know what they're doing. It gets insane from here. It scales too horribly. And honestly, I never made it past management because my store was getting hit constantly by shoplifters, and I did my duty to stop them, which was just follow them to their car and get their license plate. Let's be real. But hey, corporate no likey, so corporate say bye-bye. You have no protections as a manager. Basically, one screw up and you're done. It's like one strike and you're out. It doesn't matter if you have the highest corporate numbers in the entire company. It doesn't matter if you are the best performing manager with perfect attendance and you're always smiling and have the best reviews that anyone has ever gotten in the entire company. It doesn't matter if you're friends with the freaking CEO of the company. You are donezo. Sorry. Better luck next time. Enjoy the next 13 years in retail, bucko. So take my warning, take my heed. You need to listen to me when I tell you this. Never, ever, ever get stuck in the janitorial or bagger position, and never, ever go beyond cashier. If you get to that second little position in the store, don't be a laborer in produce. Don't be a laborer in like deli or dairy or in the electronics. Don't do that. No. Go be a cashier and sit in that cashier position and do nothing else. Never volunteer for anything else. Never, ever be a yes man and just sit there, scan the groceries, talk to the customers, go on your, corporate allotted break of 15 or 30 minutes or whatever it is, wherever you work, and then that's it. I know you need more money because that is not a paying wage, but it's at least something so you don't starve. You'll have to work on your side hustle or finish college or whatever it is that you plan to do for money. I haven't figured that step out yet either. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this crazy rant. I'm Swole Benji. Thanks for watching. As always, be a bro and stay swole. Do note that I read every single comment. Leave a like if you can. I mean, it's one click. It's just one click and it helps out tremendously. I make videos every day on this channel, so subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's video. On screen right now on the right side is a video that you should absolutely click. I'm trying to get gamers together to play video games. I only have like 30 people in my Discord. Please consider joining. The Discord link is in the description. If you want to donate, click the thanks button down below. It shows up in the comment section. Or become a channel member for $5 a month. It's like being subbed on Twitch. $5 will get you access to private personal videos. There's a playlist in the pinned comment. I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Mwah.